Hi, I'm Darlene Kaplan. I'm an oriental brush painter here at the Loft Gallery in Occoquan, and also in the studio artist in the art center, which is where we are today doing the demonstration. And I'm going to demonstrate koi for you. And my koi have been featured in several magazines. I'm an international award winner. Just got two yesterday, received two international awards in a botanical section. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the art itself and the medium, the supplies that you use for this art. First, you start out with a paper, and this paper is very thin but very strong, and we call it rice paper even though it isn't rice because it's white and it's from China. All my papers are handmade. And then we have the ink, and the ink is the ink stick and the ink stone. And I grind my own ink. And when you grind your ink, this is the meditation part of the art itself. And what I'm doing is I'm warming up my arm. I'm calming my spirit. I'm getting rid of all the stress that you have in a everyday life, to where you drive places and you get there and you're all stressed out. So this helps alleviate all of those problems that we have. And then we have the brush. And the brushes are all handmade brushes. These are all natural hair. And we've got three main different features in the brush. You've got the soft, which is made out of sheep hair, goat hair, rabbit. You've got the medium, which is the red brushes. These are the fox or the wolf, sometimes badger. And then you've got the black ones that are strong, that are horsehair. And you use different brushes for different subjects. And then of course you've got the colors, and the colors are all mineral-based colors. They're different than the Western watercolors because of the binder that holds the colors together. They're all mineral-based, no vegetable-based at all in these. So you will see a painting in some of the old antique paintings in the Chinese culture that you can see this bright green. This is the stone green, or blue or white. It never fades. This ink never fades. And this is made from the stone malachite. And it's ground, and you'll usually have three different layers of different colors of malachite because of the matrix, the white pieces in the stone itself. And then your blues are indigo, azurite. So they're all, and the sienna is made from dirt. So they're all mineral-based colors. So what I'm going to show you is a series of starting from a blank piece of paper down to having the very beginning of a painting, and then taking it a little bit further, finishing off. And you always start with a focal point. Wherever that focal point's going to be, that's the one you always start with first. This one kind of fades out into the background because they are underwater. And then this one is adding a few more fish. I will either put 5 or 7, 3, 5 or 7. If the paper's huge, I'll use 9. And with a slight undertone to where I'm washing around, toning the background a little bit, up to one that is almost finished. So that's the progression of the painting, keeping it soothed. And what this paper does, or the paper is thinned, so this color will soak into the paper. Where Western watercolor, it sits on top, it never soaks in. So that gives your painting a very soft, serene color. And you'll notice the stone green in a lot of my paintings. The one back here, you'll see the stone greens in these backgrounds. So that's a color that you'll see a lot. And these are just some that I started on different papers, just to give you an idea. This paper right here, when it gets wet, your fingers stick right through it, and so does your brush. So it's very fragile when it's wet if it's not a landscape paper. So you have to choose your paper according to your subject. And these are just some in various stages as well, just to give you an idea of different subjects that you can make. Okay, so now back to the koi. Okay, so when you choose your paper, if you're going to wash the background and anything in water, lotus, anything that's in the water, under the water, you have to choose a paper that will hold up when you get it wet to where it won't disintegrate in your hands. You've got a smooth side and you've got a rough side on your paper. The smooth side is the side that you paint on. So I'm going to get my brush wet. So these soft brushes take a little bit more water, and then rake out the excess water. And if you want to see if your paper's absorbent, you just put some clear water. If it spreads, then you know you have to be very careful with the water. The outline is going to be in ink, and this ink is permanent, and once it goes down, you can't change it. So in this kind of work, you don't correct, you try to follow your mistakes. If you try to correct it, the more water that goes into your paper, the bigger it goes. So you will end up with a huge mess. So I'm going to start with a focal point. The focal point is going to be this first fish. I'm going to start with the mouth. And you can't draw this in with pencil either, because it shows. You can't get rid of the pencil. If you try to erase it, it's going to take your paper with it. So the mouth and the little whiskers, all the kois have the little whiskers on it. Come up and up. Now he gets a little fin, a little gill right here. And two. Now the eye is usually going to go about halfway between the end of the gill to the whisker. So, and because you're looking down on him, you're going to show the top of the eye. So the top of the eye, you're going to show across. And when you hold your brush, there's a different way that you hold your brush too. You've got two fingers on top, your thumb, ring finger, and little finger support. So you've got the support you need. Your hand wrist is down, your elbow is up, and you pull to get when you get your hands in the right position, you have to put your brush in the right position because it's sticking straight out. So you have to use your fingers to pull rather than the wrist. And you paint from your shoulder. And the painting has to show energy. If it doesn't show the energy, now I'm going to go across and slightly up for the other eye. Then your painting is going to be dead. So the major thing in this is showing the energy. And enjoying it. And what you do in this kind of art, you don't use photographs. You study nature and you paint about 10,000 of each subject, the Chinese say. And after that, you're able to just sit down and paint without any photograph or without anything except for your memory. And it works. So I'm just doing the outline of the fish first. And you've got light strokes, pushing down. You have to know when to apply pressure, when to ease up. And what part of your brush do you use? Right now I'm using the side of the brush. And I'm not painting realism. I'm painting the spirit of this koi, the essence of the subject. And when you go in wet into wet, it just dissolves. I'm going to get rid of a little bit of that color. Now, when you put the fins in, you need to put them going back, coming toward your fish this direction. If you put them this way, then that means he's throwing his brakes on. So I want him to be swimming because he's in motion. I don't want him to stop and lose that energy. So I'm going to start here and pull forward. And again, I'm painting the essence of this fish. And what I do is I try to show as little as I can, give you the least amount of information that I can give you, and your mind's eye will fill in the blanks. Now this one, right there. So now we're going to put the tail in, and I'm going to use a little different brush, something that's a little bigger, because the tail fin is real important, because that's where your energy is going to show the most. So the ink, when you do this, or your color, is always on the tip end of your brush or halfway. This part right here is reserved for water. When you have this water, that's what blends your colors together. You don't mix your colors up and then put them on one at a time like you do one and then another. You put all your colors in layers on your brush, and it comes out in layers. So the color that you want on last, you have to put in your brush first, if that makes sense. And I'll demonstrate that when I get to the color. So coming out, now I've got the dark on this side. I'm going to turn it, you've got left-handed strokes and right-handed strokes. I'm going to turn this over, so with the tip end of my brush, that's where my ink is. So I want that dark to be on the outside, so I'm going to turn my brush around and here. And this is not the easiest medium that you can use. Actually, it's the hardest, because I've done oils, I've done other mediums, and this one is the most challenging, and I think that's probably why I like it the most, because I like challenge. Okay, what I'm going to do now is, these guys are in the water, so he's round, so I have to take this and make it look round. So I'm going to take a clean brush, and I'm going to wet the very bottom of this just with clean water and a clean brush. Now all of a sudden this is the bottom of the fish, so it flips and that's the bottom. That's a little confusing for people, but that's, now I'm going to, I've got just a little bit of blue wash here, and I'm just going to go very soft, very light. And again, this is water up here, and this water on the paper and this water in the brush is going to blend out into nothing. And I have to keep the edge of the brush down toward the, now I've got a light blue color, so now that will blend. Now I'm going to change brushes again to a smaller brush. Now the fish can have little scales. And see the difference in when it's wet and when it's dry? When it's wet, it just blends right in, softens. And I don't want these to be too dark. I want them to stay light. And I'll try to work fast. And I have to put it on the back side. And then crisscross. So these will all cross over. And I'm going to fade them out as we go back. And crisscross here. Good. So I want that to be soft. I want all of these to be soft. Now to add color, and I'll just demonstrate a little bit of color. I don't want to make this too long. I'm going to go into white. That's another difference in this art and Western watercolor is we depend on white a lot, and the Western watercolor doesn't use white at all that much because it makes everything milky. So go into white, up halfway into yellow into my brush. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of orange, halfway into orange, and a little bit of red at the very tip end of my brush. So I've got the colors loaded on my brush. So I start with the darkest in the center here in the circle, and I'm going to push it out. And all of those colors will blend together. So you've got the dark in the middle, and then you've got the colors down as you go. I'm going to add a little bit more orange color, and I'm going to make this a little bigger. And you can see the variations from the orange to the yellow. And down in here where it's wet, it's going to smooth out. And I can give the fins a little bit of the color as well. And this will just give you an idea of this style of art. And there's going to be a lot of white in the fish itself, but I'm not going to put it in first because white overflows. And once that white overflows into your paper, you can't get it, you can't cover it up. And you can see this has overflown a little bit, which is okay because it's in the water anyway. As long as it's just water, we're okay. And then give it some little dots to indicate more scales. And then that would get white in there. So that's about all I'm going to do to this one, just to give you an idea of where you start and introduce you to a little bit of the technique of the art itself. And if you want to see more of my art, go to www.darlenekaplan.com, and also you can see it at the Loft Gallery on the website in my personal page. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed.